Hello, fellow Sublime text fanatics. ODAT Nerd here with the devlog for Devember day 14. This is pretty exciting. We're about roughly halfway through our Devember, but we've made some serious strides. Now, I wasn't actually expecting this to be as easy as it was, but when it came down to it, and hopefully hubris is not getting in the way, we have successfully implemented tonight the what I believe to be a Python implementation of how Sublime gathers the files to be used in the sidebar, which is what we wanted. We wanted to be able to mimic the system that Sublime is using for that. But let's not get ahead of ourselves on that. Let's talk about something else first. Per the devlog last night to today, not really a lot happened. I did think about how we might do our thing that we actually ended up doing tonight. In particular, the optimization that I mentioned last night about what if we wanted to, or we decided we wanted to prune away parts of the tree by knowing that we wanted to exclude the folder. For example, you decide that you want to exclude the bin folder. Um, if there's 1,000 files in there, but you know not to recurse into the bin folder because you know that you don't want it, that's a bunch of time you've saved. You don't even need to look at what files are in there. They're never going to be included because you specifically excluded the bin folder, right? So hooray for that. How could we go about doing that? And I will admit I was pondering what the best way would be to pull that, and I did some research on the os.walk API function, which is the one we're using, and discovered, lo and behold, um, as long as you're recursing in a top-down fashion, which we are, and which is the default action, then one of the arguments that os.walk returns, it's a three-tuple. One of them is the path, one of them is the list of directories, and one of them is the list of files. And the list of directories in the path and the list of files in that path. And it actually allows you to modify the list of directories in place, either adding items or removing them or changing their order. And that controls what order it goes into them later, if at all. So it's actually really easy to trim away folders if you want, and it doesn't even walk them, which is fantastic. So we investigated that a little bit, and tonight we actually managed to implement what appears to be, as I said, the system that mimics how Sublime does that. Now, it's actually, when all is said and done, a fairly simplistic operation, at least as far as I can tell. There may be more edge cases to it. I will admit I've never done anything super fantastic with including and excluding. What we discovered tonight kind of jives with complaints I've seen people make in the Sublime forums about how this sort of thing seems to work. And really, it works like this. First of all, we verify by modifying the project in Sublime that it excludes folders first and then excludes files, under the theory that if a folder isn't included, then its contents also cannot be included. That, by observation, seems to be how it works, at least for the ways that we tested it. And if that's the case, then the first thing to do is, as we're doing the os.walk, we get that list of directories. We immediately modify it by saying, throwing away entries that don't belong in there, which is simple. If the list of input directory folders to include is empty, we want all of those. If the list of folders to include is not empty, we only want the intersection of where those two meet. And if there's excludes, you want to remove it from the list. So what we actually did was say that if the list of includes is empty, or that this directory is in the list of directories to include, then go into the second part of the test. And the second part of the test says if the list of excludes is empty or this folder doesn't exist, then keep it, otherwise throw it away. And you end up with the list of directories modified to only include ones that should be included. And we inject that in place with a slice operation to modify the list. Boom, it's no longer recursing into those things. Then we implement a similar thing for file specs using the fn match function, or module function, I should say, that we're looking at in yesterday's stream. And again, that's just sort of as simple as take this file name, see if it matches any of the things in the input list. And if the input include list is empty or this path is in it, then continue. And in that case, keep it unless it appears in the exclude list. And that allows us to, again, cover both of those cases. If the include list has something in it, it includes first, then excludes. If the input list is empty, it's treated as if everything is included, and it only excludes things if it's specifically supposed to. Now, with those two things in place, for all of our tests, it really seems as if it is actually just creating the list of files. And if you watch the stream, I had some hesitant thoughts of, if I specify certain directory, it doesn't include the subdirectories when you specify includes. Is that expected? And it turns out I think it is. Now, again, there may be more fantastical systems in play here. I don't know, but we're going to call this at least good enough to get going. I imagine with more time, if there were more expansive ways for this to work, it would be pretty easy for us to figure that out. So what are the next steps? Now we actually have to work on the aspect of determining, now that we know a list of files, we have to structure that list in some way and communicate it to the server along with the actual contents of the files, right? And now we're really getting into the meat of our build. We've told it we want to build. It's found the list of files that it actually cares about. It needs to say, on my system, the directory is this. And inside of that directory, here's a list of 35 files relative to that. And here's the contents of those files. Run this command in there. And the server end of this operation says, okay, I create a temporary folder somewhere on disk, configured by the person who set up the server, presumably. Inside that folder, I drop the copies of files as you gave them to me. They're inside there, so their relative structure is still identical to what it was before, but now it's in a different place on a different operating system. Now I run the command. I shoot the output of that command back to the client for display in the panel. Along the way, we're looking to see if there are any errors that are appearing, and if there are any errors that appear, we examine the file name, try to make it relative to the location that the file is in, and then convert that to be what it would have looked like on the client end. That's a simplistic estimation of what we're doing, but that's really all there is left to do when you get right down to it. There's a lot of little fiddly bits there. So tomorrow, I am not sure as of yet exactly what I want to tackle next on that. I'm going to have to think about that while I'm doing my walk tomorrow, what the best way to proceed is. Might be actually working on the protocol a little bit more. We might work on the data structure a little bit more, maybe a little bit of both. But that is the tale for Devember day 15, which this is not. This is Devember day 14. Halfway there, and we're making good strides, I think. My original estimate was that it would take about 7 days to get the client code working and 7 days to get the server code working. And not only have we done that, we've also managed to replicate file gathering. So good on us. So hang on in there, and won't get us a build system yet, or stop trying because November will be over. Just kidding. I won't stop trying. I'm still going to continue the project. I just won't live stream it every day. This isn't as bad as I thought it would be. Until then, stay sublime.